Hi, everyone. This is Kaylee from the U.S. Center for Mental Health and Sport. We're very excited to have Cassidy Leake here today to talk a little bit about overload and how she balances her sport with life and all that good stuff. So I'll let Cassie introduce herself, and thanks again for being here.
Hi guys, I'm happy to be here. Thanks so much, Kaylee, for having me on. My name's Cassidy Leake. I play for the U.S. Women's Paralympic soccer team. I'm a grad student at Boston University, and yeah, I'm excited to be here.
Awesome. But yeah, so like I said, we want to talk a little bit about overload and really hear your perspective as an elite level who's played at the highest level with the US Paralympic team, how you've been able to balance that throughout your life, while still maintaining being a holistic person and any challenges that you faced balancing those things.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, it's been tough. I think that obviously, like at this point, it's not, Paralympic or para team, our team specifically isn't funded to the extent that we can only be a soccer player. So, that includes working multiple jobs outside of the sport, as well as, training on your own because we can't, train full time together all the time. So it's a lot of lonely workouts and extra side hustles and, all of that. That makes things a little bit difficult, a little bit tougher to balance. Something that's been helping me, I actually recently started going to therapy. And I've, just learned a lot about how to say no to the things that, aren't always mandatory and set boundaries for myself. Because I'll go until I have nothing, really left. And so that's something that I've been working on a bit, but it's a learning process for sure. I think that I'm still, I still have a long ways to go, but I think that I'm headed in the right direction for sure.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I can certainly relate as like a former collegiate athlete. It's always been super hard to balance the sport with life because
Really.
for me as an athlete, I want to perform at the highest level, and that was a huge priority for me and my identity. So,
Totally.
I oftentimes found myself a bit consumed by that. Um,
Yeah.
so I think it's awesome that you're finding ways to, find yourself in other light besides just your sport. And also what you mentioned too, like burnout. That's a huge
Yeah.
effect of overload. I've been there myself.
Yes.
Yeah, so I think it's great that you're taking those steps. Um, how do you think like from like transitioning from college and going to that high level, like have you throughout that time found any new steps or techniques that help you to balance and anything specific that you do for that?
Totally. That's a good question. I think that in college, part of it, part of what made it a little bit more difficult is that, when you're in season, you're going nonstop. You have practices every single day. You have multiple games a week, so you don't have a lot of time to really slow down and reset. Versus playing professionally, it's a little bit more spread out. You do a lot of training alone. You have a lot more time to really focus on your mental health. So I think that's been helpful in and of itself. But additionally, I've learned that journaling is super big for me. I'm for performance anxiety always to the max. I put a lot of pressure on myself. So something that I've learned that helps a lot is just journaling, writing down all my thoughts 5, 10 minutes before I leave for a training session or at night, even if my head's running and I'm having a tough time getting to sleep, which sleep I've learned is so important as well. Trying to get my 8 hours in. So yeah, those are just a couple of things that I've found have helped me a little bit.
Yeah, yeah, that's awesome. And then like, in those high stress moments, I think journaling is an awesome technique. I also do that as well. So cheers to that. But yeah, in
I
those
love it.
when you like, if you're going to a big game or a big practice or a tryout for that matter, like what are some techniques that you do, or maybe that you wish you did more of, or maybe that you don't even really know how to do? How do you manage your high stress?
That's fair. I think that obviously like journaling, like I mentioned, has been super big for me, but I think also like listening to my mind and my body and listening to what I need instead of, like kind of going along with the flow of like what maybe other people on the team might need. Like, for example, some people need to blare music and get hype and all the things. And like while I love to do that, it's a ton of fun. I found that it doesn't really produce results for me, because it gets my head going, at a high level, and I need to calm down and do the exact opposite. So for me, it's, headphones in, listening to a podcast, listening to calm music, to kind of get my head right before going into something like that. So I think really it's just important to figure out what works best for you, and, do whatever that is, regardless of, what your team's routine might be.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. For me too. I always listen to music, but I like my personal music better than the locker room blare. But that locker room blare can be a blast too. But yeah,
Fun.
that sounds great.
Totally.
Yeah, so I think that feedback has been great from you. I think another big piece is how to find ways for you to be a holistic person. Like, you mentioned those side hustles and those other things that you have to do. Like, identity is a huge piece of sport. How I think a way you can break that overload is, try and take some of that pressure off the sport and remember that there's other things that you can do. For me, I love to cook and read some books. So those are some things that I like to do outside of sport. What are some things that you like to do?
That's so funny. I like that you mentioned the identity piece, because that's so big. I feel like people who, finish college and don't go on to play professionally, like that's a huge struggle they have. And I took a gap between playing collegiate and playing professionally. So I understand that life. It's gnarly, but some things that I like to do outside of sport. One, I'm a grad student, and my grad degree is not related to sports at all. I'm studying public relations and journalism, so that's been super helpful in kind of like establishing an identity outside of sports. Just like focusing on my professional life and growing my network, and acquiring those skills that I need for my work when I'm done playing, has been super helpful. Also, I think that committing time to social life is important as well. Like I'm huge on I'm obsessed with my teammates. I've always been like from childhood up, I've always been so close with my teammates, but learning to like invest in friendships outside of your teammates is important too, because they don't see you as a teammate or an athlete, they just see you as a friend. And I think that it's really important to have those relationships as well.
Yeah.
So taking that time to spend time with friends outside of soccer has been really good for me too.
Yeah, I completely agree. That was actually my next point. Like, balancing the things that are outside of sport are like so important, but also really hard to do. Like, I'm sure for you, especially at such an elite level, a lot of your time is consumed by your practice, your games and training, and even being a grad student. Like how hard or what ways can you find balance, or like if you can talk a little bit more about how you find that balance outside of sport. I think that would be great to hear from someone at your level.
Oh, thank you. It's so funny to hear you say that, just because I feel no different than I felt, playing club or college or whatever. But thank you for
You
that.
made it, Cassidy.
If I could believe that, that would be awesome.
Give yourself
um,
the credit.
See, and that's part of my problem. Like I don't think I ever really will feel like I've made it. And
Mhm.
I something that like really like inhibits my life balance, because I feel like there's always more I can do.
Yeah,
Uh,
I can relate
could
to
be,
that.
like more training I could be doing, or if I'm not training, what am I eating? Like, how can I improve my diet or whatever that might be? So it's just tough. I mean, I'm still genuinely like I'm still really working to find balance, but I mentioned it earlier, like I said, like the biggest thing that I found is learning to say no to the things that aren't mandatory for me. I'm a huge people pleaser, and just, learning to put myself first a little bit in some situations, and understand what my capacity is, and say no to the things that I need to say no to, and listen to my body. If, I'm sore or I'm hurting, it's tempting to push through injuries, I think. So just trying to listen to that, and take training sessions off if I need to, mentally or physically. So yeah, just really trying to be more in tune with my mind and my body, and kind of listen to it.
Yeah, yeah, I totally hear you. And I think the other piece of that is just setting yourself as the priority. Obviously you want to succeed in your sport, but it's not always the number one. Like yourself and your happiness, that always comes first. So I think that's a great point. And it's hard for people to do, like you said, like you're always striving to do more and more. And sometimes I feel like maybe I'm wrong, but speaking for you, but that could be a barrier for like, prioritizing yourself and what you need. And I was the same exact way.
Really.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it always was like more, more, more. Like when do you reach that threshold where you're like proud of yourself, It's
Yes, you're preaching 100%. You sound like a therapist, honestly.
yeah, I've been told that
Yeah,
before.
yeah.
I've just
It's
been there and I get it. And like I think these types of conversations are so important to have, like athlete to athlete, like, it's real and it's just like how you feel and like it's just the truth. So
no, I
yeah.
think I was nervous to come on and talk about this stuff just because I was thinking like, like I don't entirely have it all figured out yet. I
Yeah.
haven't completely like conquered life balance yet, so that was my goal, is just to be transparent and honest, and
Oh
we're on.
yeah. And like I didn't expect you to either. Like I feel like most people don't. And like I think that is even in itself a great point for people to hear that at your level, it's still a challenge to figure out and it needs to be something that's more prioritized for people and that it's okay to prioritize that because overload is a real thing. Like it can
Yeah,
really, there's detrimental effects to your mental health and that's why we're talking about it today.
I love that. I love
Yeah.
that. And I think you guys are having all the right conversations. It's really cool. So thank you so much for, having me on and starting the conversation a bit.
Yeah, no, of course. And my last question for you, Cassidy, if you could speak a little bit about how you've balanced like I know you're on the Paralympic team, how you've balanced, going through your health issues with life and sport because, there's people like you out there and even at a smaller scale who maybe tear their ACL or go through an injury, like a whole nother piece of balancing that's so big in sport. So I'd love to
Yeah,
hear that from you as well.
that's a great point. I think, yeah, there's so many. For example, even my roommate just recently tore ACL, and I'm watching her go through the whole process and, get frustrated with not being able to, train or do all the things that she wants to do. So it's tough. I mean, with my health experience, I think the biggest thing that's helped me was just focusing on, someone told me to run my race. They're like, girl, just run your race. Like, you're not running anybody else's race. You don't got to keep up with whoever. Like, focus on you, run your race. And that's something that's really been helpful for me. Just meeting myself where I'm at and, getting a little bit of self acceptance. Like, this is where I am right now. I'm doing everything that I'm capable of doing. And like, that's enough for me today. So just trying to be patient and, trust your body and, don't rush it. Don't rush it. There's time for all the things you want to do.
Yeah.
You just got to take care of yourself and you'll be back to where you want to be soon
Yeah.
enough.
Yeah, and I'm sure the pressure of getting back was definitely a lot on you, and even that pressure can facilitate a burnout, just feeling that, like getting through that grind of that struggle of I'm pushing through and rehab and whatever I need to be doing, but also, I want to get back on the field, but I also want to go hang out with my friends on Friday night. So, you know,
100%. It's a balancing act. I think something that's helpful for me in that aspect is like having relationships with, doesn't have to be a million people, but just, like maybe two or three close relationships of people who, like know you well enough to know that you're going to push yourself hard, maybe harder than you should, and they can hold you accountable and, kind of pick you up when you're struggling. I think it's really important to have those people.
yeah,
And people are willing to help. It's hard to reach out for help, I think. You don't want to be a burden to anybody or, all those sorts of things, but people are so willing to help if you just let them, you
yeah,
know.
I totally agree. And again, that's why we're doing what we're doing.
I
So
love
I appreciate you, Cassidy, and last thing I will ask you, if you could give anyone watching this some advice on how to the balance or how to manage overload and stress, what do you think would be some advice
how to
from your
balance.
experience?
Gosh, one thing that's tough.
Maybe a few, if a few come to mind.
Yeah, yeah. I think the biggest thing, I hate to repeat myself, but the biggest thing I would say is learning to say no, like protect your
Mhm.
peace, say no when you have to, but like above all else, above sports, above school or work, any of the things, you have to protect your peace,
Yeah,
whether that means, you know, taking time off or, choosing to go to therapy instead of get a training session in, or choosing to, get 9 hours of sleep instead of going to hang out with that friend you promised you would. Like, you have
yeah,
to be honest with the people around you about your boundaries and, kind of what you need, and just, yeah, protect your peace.
Yeah, I love it. I totally agree. And again, thank you again for taking the time, Cassidy. This has been great. We certainly can relate on a lot of these things.
Yeah,
I'm like, we need to continue this conversation as.
that's what I was
Um,
thinking. I have a
yeah,
call.
yeah, for real. No charge. I
Yeah.
promise.
Well, thank you
Well,
so much.
yeah, no, thank you. We appreciate it. Thanks everyone.
Thanks, guys.